Okay, 2002 Ford Windstar, 3.8 liter engine. Time to change the thermostat. So what we're going to do is take the air cleaner unit off of here. And what I used to take that off with was I actually undid that clamp there with a, I'll tell you here in a sec, 8mm socket. That's all there is to it. Pull it off, make sure you get your hose out of here, and then we just disconnect it from here, and that gets everything out of the way. Little tabs are hard to push sometimes, especially when they're broke. There we go. Now that's just pushed in with a piece of plastic, and that usually just pops right out of there. There we go. So now we can just set the whole thing aside. Down there is where we want to go, in the bottom. Pull those bolts out. Okay, so we've got two bolts down in there that we need to take off. One of them is actually right there, and the other one's on the opposite side, and they are 8mm. So we're going to pop those off, and we'll be able to get at the pipe clamp and remove the pipe clamp. Cover up your battery with an old greasy rag or some type of a rag, because you don't want to get that acid on your clothes, because it will eat right through your clothes. Another thing I like to do is I like to warm up the engine to operating temperature. That makes the bolts a little easier to come out when the engine is hot, and I'll usually try and tighten the bolt before I actually take it off. Now what I mean by tightening is you just snap it forward a little bit, not a whole lot, maybe 1mm or so. You see it turn, and then you can back it off, and they usually come out a little easier that way instead of just trying to break them in the reverse order. Okay, got the old one out, and we're going to replace it with the new one right there. So just make sure that that little pin right there goes on the top, and then you're good to go. And I'm actually going to leave the old gasket in there, and I'm going to put some of this on there. It's actually gasket maker. It's for high temperatures, and it'll seal anything that's in there once it gets tightened up. There we go. I just put a light coating all the way around it, and I also put just a little bit on the back side, and I pushed that back in place. Don't have to put very much on it. Once it hits the gasket, it's going to seal any cracks or crevices that will be in the old gasket, and seal it all up. It gets tightened in there, nothing coming out. I'll put these through the wire brush just to clean them off a little bit, get that corrosion away from them. There we go, all back in, ready to fill it up with antifreeze. And all I'm going to do is fill this jug right here and keep an eye on the engine while it's running, so that it will actually circulate into the engine. So we'll have to keep refilling this thing here until it gets full. And now we're going to put the rest of it back together again. And these bolts in here, make sure you don't tighten them too much, because if you tighten them too much, you could break them. Remember, they're only small bolts. Just snug them up.